Alex Bregman is officially a Boston Red Sox. He was introduced with the Red Sox over the weekend. I sense something that I think has been brewing for a long time in said introduction. We'll react to what he had to say and his farewell to Houston. Also, this weekend, our first weekend without any football at all, was a difficult one to stomach because of something that has become more and more, at least in my mind, a problem across sports. But at least we did get some good old-fashioned nationalism in our sports. I'm Paul Gallant, and this is the Gallant Says podcast.
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
Paul Gallant's wondering the same things a lot of people wonder.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to say.
Grow up, are you kidding me? Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. I'm Paul Gallant. It is Monday, February 17th, 2025, live on YouTube at Paul Gallant, Twitch at Gallant Says, on X at Gallant Says, Instagram at Sports Gallant, and Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports, Monday through Friday around 4 p.m. Central Time, and occasionally after major Houston sporting events. It's available after the fact, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. If you want to cut me off mid-thought, you can super chat me in the best place to experience this show on YouTube or Twitch, and I will play this.
Paul, stop talking. Listen.
That is former Houston Texan Wade Smith, and I'll talk to you right away, right there. But you got to give me something extra, at least for me to be cut off mid-thought. If not, though, I will eventually get to all of your comments. Alex Bregman introduced himself with the Boston Red Sox over the weekend. And I got to say, I sensed salt from Bregman when he was asked about his time in Houston. And that might come as a surprise because if you saw the statement that Alex Bregman posted to his social media, which you can see on my screen right now, if you're watching this thing live, it read as follows: "From the moment I put on an Astros uniform, I felt the love, passion, and energy of this city. Together, we became champions on and off the field. 8 playoff appearances, 7 ALCS appearances, 4 World Series appearances, 2 World Series titles. We've fought hard each season, lifting each other up in the toughest moments and celebrating our triumphs as one. But more than the stats, it's the resilience of this city that has stuck with me, because Houston is a city that knows how to rise, rebuild, and keep fighting. From weathering natural disasters to overcoming the global challenges of a pandemic and rallying behind philanthropic causes aiding our great community, Houston has always come together in a way only this city can. We've faced adversity together, and that's what makes this city and this team so special. That strength is embedded in the heart of every single person who is lucky enough to call Houston home. To the Astros organization, thank you for believing in me, for pushing me to be my best, and for giving me the opportunity to live out my dream. To my teammates, you made every day at the ballpark unforgettable, and I will always cherish the moments we created together, both on and off the field. We are family. To the fans, thank you for every cheer, every chant, and every moment of support. I will never take our time together for granted. Houston, from the bottom of my heart, thank you." So that's Bregman's goodbye. And it reads nice. I know that there were some online, I think this is from at Astros Batgirl, that didn't like it as much. Houston, y'all are being so nice in the comments on Bregman's goodbye post. That man does not care about you or this city. Chat GPT ass writing never gave us a good salsa worth a damn, and simping for money from people who booed and threatened him for 7 years. ... Cringe. I know some people felt that way, and this is, I think, the way that Astros fans have been consistent the most throughout this run. It's been going against the people who call them out on the cheating and saying, well, the Dodgers and Yankees did it too. The Red Sox did it too. It's also whenever a guy leaves for another spot, it does feel like Astros fans turn on that guy as soon as they leave. I don't like it. I get it. But I don't like it. But Alex Bregman, when he met with Boston media and was asked about his time in Houston, I was struck by how little he had to say. Here's Bregman just being asked the question by some Red Sox reporter about making the decision to leave the Astros after all this time.
And how difficult was it for you at the end to leave an organization that you had been with your entire career?
Oh, definitely difficult. I have so much respect for the organization, top to bottom, all the players. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, 10 seconds. So much respect for the organization, top to bottom. Well, they didn't show him as much respect as he would have liked on the way out. That's why he signed with Boston ultimately. Also, I think that there were some reasons that he might have wanted to go here. The fact that he's got an incredible career average when hitting at Fenway Park, 375 average, 1240 OPS. It's Ted Williams-esque. Truly, those numbers are comparable. So there were other reasons for him to potentially leave in 3 years for $40 million, for sure. It's one of those things where if you're Bregman, you're going to take the $40 million if you can get it. But I don't know. I found it surprising that that's all he had to say. Corey said, no one cares about Bregman anymore. Been over it. You definitely have nothing else to go live about. Well, yeah, football season's over. And I was struck by just how little he had to say about his time with Houston. I mean, he was asked about his time here. That's it. Not a lot. Here's more Alex Bregman at that press conference on Saturday. He was asked about Jose Altuve, who you might remember was the guy who said, hey, man, I'll do anything to keep this guy in town. Here's what Breggy had to say about him.
Oh, definitely tough. You build great relationships with people in this game, and he's a friend of mine for life, and I've loved every second of being able to suit up with him.
That's it. And I think how short he was when asked about the Astros and asked about Altuve is probably a reflection of how he actually feels about the organization, and things might change over time, but I think he felt disrespected by them. Should he have? I mean, 6 years, $156 million. That was a pretty good offer. 6 years, was it $165 million? Whatever the case, I feel like it's just not a whole lot for us on the way out. On Instagram, at El Mimo says, run Bregman's goodbye post through an artificial intelligence reader. And it says it's mostly AI generated. I mean, that would bum me out. Are we now at the point where we assume that any statement put out there by an athlete is fake, that they couldn't have written it themselves, that they would have had AI do it? I feel like that's wrong to actually do that. You know? I feel like writing anything with the aid of ChatGPT, it's just so fucked. Like, I get it. If you're in school or something like that, to use ChatGPT to do a project that you don't really care all that much about, that you're not passionate about, I get it. But I think when you put something in writing and it's not actually coming from your mouth, I don't like it. But that's the way we're going these days. So if that's what Bregman did, that's what he did. He just didn't have much to say about him on the way out. And maybe I should be in agreement with Corey here. No one cares about Bregman anymore, but because that story did get tiresome. I know for sure I was fucking sick of talking about it. But for him to leave and for the end to be as seemingly nonchalant and unemotional for Bregman here, it does bum me out. Corey continues saying the Astros showed him plenty of respect. Bregman just didn't want to be here anymore. And that might be it. I respect him for being honest, though. I'd rather him be truthful than be a hypocrite and a liar. I respect it. But I thought he would have to have more to say about Altuve at the very least, especially after what Altuve said about him. And that's it. So there you go, guys. That's the end of the Alex Bregman era. And I did sense a little bit of saltiness. Just a little bit with those quick answers that he gave at his press conference. Capsize says, what's up, Paul? The comments are dead today. WTF. Yeah, this is the time of year where I'm going to have to figure out things that will get the most people in here. And this is the new challenge of the Gallant podcast. I mean, I think most people like my football takes a lot, and you are amused by my takes on other things. So that's something else we're going to figure out in the coming weeks. But we will be doing this thing at 4 p.m. Central Time every day after I'm done doing the radio show. And if you got any suggestions, please have at it. Altuve at spring training over the weekend, I think this was on Sunday, was asked about losing Bregman and losing some other players. Here's what the Astros second baseman had to say. This is courtesy of Brian McTaggart, MLB Network, the video that you can see from McTaggart's X account.
Disappointing is that, or how do you see the way the team handled that?
Yeah, we lost a big player, obviously, but we got to focus on the guys that we have here. He's obviously one of the best that ever played in Houston, and we're all gonna remember him and we're gonna miss him. But we're also happy for him. He's on a great deal, man. He's the $40 million is not a lot of players can get to that, and he got it. So we all happy for him. And same thing, we got to move on and focus about the players we have here. Keep moving. We have great talent here, great players. They're definitely gonna do everything to win, and we see Alex down the road when we play in Boston or Houston.
He's a lot warmer. Altuve is talking about Bregman there. I mean, listen to how nostalgic he sounds. And he's saying all the right things. Hey, we've got the team to do this to make up for it. But I guess it just bums me out that Bregman didn't show similar sentiment, at least when asked about Altuve, if not when asked about the actual time with the Astros. And maybe he has hurt feelings from that, but I do think that just given what Boston ultimately had to give Bregman, that the Astros did give a respectful offer to him. It's just a bummer that that's the last, for a while, that we'll hear Alex Bregman saying anything about the Astros until the next series. And maybe with a little bit of reflection and playing a few games with the Red Sox, he'll feel differently leading up to that series. But for now, yeah, that's it. This is a bummer. I wanted a little bit more. El Mimo posts on Instagram at Sports Gallant. You can join in the live chat on Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube, and Twitch. Everyone that leaves the Astros, baseball immediately posts about how amazing they are, but they are silent while they're in Houston. And there were a lot of Red Sox fans that didn't like Bregman. Bregman was the face of the sign-stealing scandal, for what it's worth. In a way where Altuve seemingly has been removed from that, at least by national baseball writers. It took a while. I don't think people listened to Astros players saying Altuve wasn't a part of it. So Bregman does become the actual face of the sign stealing, and now he's in Boston with Alex Cora, the guy who got away with doing the Apple Watch sign stealing. Apparently it's not a big deal, even though he was also with the fucking Astros in 2017. But Bregman gets a lot of the brunt of ire from fans now, and there are a lot of Boston people that came after him for a while. Now they bring in a guy like this. It is interesting to see the hula hoop dances that they will do to support Bregman if he plays well. And if he plays poorly, they will go after him, Thumpy McGroover says on Instagram, Windows closed. Business is business. Damn, that's depressing. El Mimo continues. Bregman has offended the Astros. Remember the last 2 months of pop-ups this last season. But he did have a very good middle of the year. He also just struggled to open the season too. Look, in the playoffs, he was reliable. You know, it wasn't his fault the season came to a close. It's the lineup. The last 2 seasons they couldn't score against the Rangers and this past season against the Tigers in the playoffs. The lineup really struggled as you got further into it. And, of course, you know, it wasn't a great outing from Framber Valdez in that first game against the Tigers. So here you are. Capsized on YouTube says, I'm not surprised that Bregman had that sort of reaction. It is what it is. I do think it's messed up that he didn't give more reaction to Altuve, but maybe he kept that private with Altuve. Who knows? Listen, I'm sure that they have spoken privately with one another and had great conversations. Just would have been nice to see it for us. Because, I mean, those 2 positional players were this Astros run from 2017 on. And now they're no longer together, and that's all you got from Bregman at the end? Like, I'm not mad at Bregman. I'm not disappointed in Bregman, but I am disappointed that we didn't get more. I would have liked him to wax poetically about Altuve a bit. Here's more Altuve from spring training in West Palm Beach.
Through this before, you've seen all kinds of guys leave. You're kind of the last guy standing from the 2017 team along with Lance. Is that
yeah, you said it. A lot of guys coming in and leaving, but I guess that's baseball. And, they're all really good where they are. They all sign great deals. They're all great players and gonna help their team to win. And so this year we gotta, kind of like move on and focus on winning. I think the goal remains the same, which is winning. So we're gonna go ahead and do it.
Have you talked to Bregman since?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we talk a lot in off season, and I think we're gonna keep talking even when he's not here.
It was obviously his decision ultimately, but do you feel like the organization did enough to try to bring him back?
I think we offered him a good deal, but like I said, free agent, you never know. You really don't know. But in the end, he's not that great deal, man.
He keeps bringing that up, and he is correct. It's $40 million a year with opt-outs after each one. He can opt out if he wants to, and doesn't it stand to reason that one of these next 3 years, given how well he hits at Fenway Park, he's going to have an awesome season and potentially line himself up for a bigger contract for a long-term deal that he didn't get right now? Yeah, I think that's possible. The Astros weren't willing to give him an offer like that, and they might have been able to give Bregman an offer like that had they not given Rafael Montero and Jose Abreu those contracts. You could argue that giving Bregman that contract would have been just like giving Abreu and Montero those contracts, or Lance McCullers, which that contract's not aging very well. But ultimately, he decided to go to Boston because they offered him a better deal than the Astros ever were going to. And as Altuve said, you do kind of have to move on. But for now, we will stay in the past just a little bit longer. More from Altuve.
I'm super happy, and I know everybody's happy here for him because he deserves it. He works hard for that, and he got it.
You think this team is still built to make a deep run in the postseason?
Yeah, for sure, yeah. You see around, you see a lot of great hitters, now with Paredes and Walker.
Paredes and Walker, great hitters. All right, Altuve, I'm holding them to that.
Definitely, these kids can hit, and they can hit homers, and, you got Jordan, and you got Jake and Duval, and you got me, so we're going to go out there.
Forgive me if this has been asked.
Love media laughs. I did it right there, too. I should be slapped for that. That was bad. Come on, Paul. You're better than that.
You got fucking grow up, motherfucker. Are you kidding me?
You're better than that, Paul. You have to be better than that. You can't join in with the media chuckles. That wasn't funny. There's no Seinfeld laugh track in the background for Altuve talking about himself at the end there. Boom, 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 boom. More comments on YouTube. Andrew Ramirez says, Christian Javier should be in his previous role before becoming a starting pitcher. He was better in his previous role. We need more pitchers. I don't believe Lance McCullers will ever pitch again. Well, he's supposedly close, but he is pitching with a much lower velocity. We'll get to Lance McCullers and some of the stuff that he had to say at spring training in just a moment. Hell, actually, we can just go into it right now. Where is this McCullers clip that we have? Here is Lance McCullers being asked about potentially leaving the starting pitcher role that we've all known him for and becoming a bullpen arm.
Asking this only because Dana at the winter meetings alluded to there could be some talk about it. You plan on building up as a starter, correct?
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but I don't think that's an easy job. And being a reliever, I think a lot of times, people almost say, "Well, just make him a reliever." I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. To be a reliever at the big league level, it's not like a fallback position. I think that it's doing a disservice to the guys who are in that role. It's very specific. It's very hard, and I don't think pitching, back-to-back days or even, 3 out of 4 days. For me, I think it's physically harder. I think the things that the guys.
Pause for a moment. I think McCullers is right about that last part. That specifically for him, it would be harder to be a reliever because of the amount of torque that he puts on his elbow throwing those filthy curveballs that he does. Are you going to be able to get the best version of Lance McCullers operating outside of a set schedule, not having the same kind of routine that starters are afforded? It might be more difficult just given the amount of injuries that he's been trying to overcome over the last half decade plus. I mean, 47 appearances since 2018, 8 appearances since 2021. But there is a part of this where I think Lance is probably going to have to look in the mirror and accept that he has to take any role that the Astros will give him this spring. Here's more Lance McCullers.
In the bullpen, have to deal with throughout a long season, the ups and downs in usages, not really knowing when they're going to be called upon sometimes. That's a harder, in my opinion, it's a harder job. It's a harder way to stay healthy. And so, like I said, it's not just something that you can just decide you wake up one day and feel like, being a reliever. It's a very specific job. I think suggesting otherwise is a disservice to the guys in the bullpen that have, in our pen and in every pen around the league. And so, for me, I'm interested in doing what I've always done. It's what I know. It's what I feel like I can give this team, the most success in.
That's a very polite and thoughtful answer that McCullers gave. And look, McCullers is very media savvy. He used to do radio hits with us back at the Texans flagship. I've always been a fan of him, the guy. I think he did a very good job there outlining that I want to continue to be a starting pitcher. This doesn't necessarily work for me being a reliever, but I think ultimately, too, if you're Lance McCullers, the question is, what are you capable of? Healthy skepticism is warranted for you ever being the same pitcher again, as Andrew Ramirez points out, even pitching again. That is in question. So if you are Lance McCullers, I do think you have to take whatever you can get or take whatever is given to you. You have to earn your spot out there. But it was, as far as answers about things that you clearly don't want to do, McCullers actually gave a pretty good one there. I'm glad El Mimo brought up Marcus Stroman should take notes from McCullers. Well, that's what we're going to get into the rest of this show. I'm really wondering how much I love sports that aren't football these days. And perhaps this is just because all jobs do eventually become jobs, even if it is one that I'm blessed to have. We're just talking about sports for a living. But I really am starting to get frustrated with the high volume of entitled sounding athletes that play every single sport. Football, because of the non-guaranteed contracts, lends itself to, I think, a little bit less of that, and hockey as well. But baseball in particular, over the last couple of days, we've seen some guys seem like the absolute worst fucking teammates. Marcus Stroman, who is a pitcher for the New York Yankees, had this to say when he was asked about potentially being moved from being a starter to a relief pitcher.
Considering your pedigree, could you handle being a reliever?
I'm a starter. I'm a starter.
So right now,
I'm a starter.
You're the sixth starter, so how do you handle that?
See how it plays out. I'm a starter. I'm a starter.
You do not want to pitch in the bullpen?
I won't pitch in the bullpen. I'm a starter. I'm a starter.
I won't pitch in the bullpen. I like how the reporter points out, you're the sixth starter. Well, I'm a starter. This is asshole rhetoric. And I'm supposed to enjoy covering guys like this. This, to me, I like team sports. This is just such a turnoff. Someone talking like that. And, you know, for context's sake, Marcus Stroman last year, 10-9 with a 4.31 ERA. So, I mean, those are very pedestrian numbers. You just get the say about what you get paid to do? You do have a boss. It's the manager. You do have a front office that runs things. He's been on since 2019. 1, 2, 3, 4 teams. And he has not been anywhere close to the pitcher that we saw in 2019 that had a 2.96 ERA. He just hasn't, at least any time recently. He's been a very average starting pitcher. And he's saying he's only going to be a starter. He's not even going to think about being a bullpen arm. It's just such an asshole line of thinking. El Mimo says, I don't want to defend Stroman, but his numbers were bad because the defense was crap. Well, we definitely saw that in the World Series against the Dodgers. And he's a soft contact ground ball pitcher. Now, that's definitely true. But I don't know. Give an answer that is more like Lance McCullers when you're not putting the numbers up. Like, I know there's a lot of metrics that sometimes explain a player has bad luck in baseball, and it's great that baseball's added that to the equation. Still, though, reality is the reality. And who the fuck is Marcus Stroman to say this is the only thing that I'm going to do? But he's not the only person that's been doing that, because this actually brings us back to Alex Bregman and the Boston Red Sox. A lot of people thought that Alex Bregman was being brought to Boston to play second base, and that Rafael Devers, their highly paid third baseman, would remain in that position. But that's not necessarily the case. Here is Alex Cora, manager of the Boston Red Sox, being asked about any sort of handshake agreement between the Sox and Devers from the recent past.
He said when he signed the long-term extension that you guys said that he'd be the third baseman long-term. Do you think the relationship is strained right now? He doesn't seem happy that, like, the team has gone back on their word. Strange between
different people here, right? There's a different leader here. So, you know, Jaime is in St. Louis right now.
Knowing that Alex would be flexible.
I mean, that's a quick answer. And then you take a look at what Rafael Devers had to say when asked about the possibility of not being a third baseman and being a designated hitter. Here he is with his translator at a press conference that I think was actually yesterday or today in Boston.
How do you think that's going to work out for you?
No sé, mi posición en la tercera base, no sé qué opinión ellos, como tu opinión no, como te digo, qué va a pasar, sino mi posición en mi tercera base y no me han dicho nada, tuvimos una conversación, pero yo le dejé claro lo que quería y no hemos hablado más.
Yeah, I mean,
third base is my position. It's what I've played. You know, I don't know what their plans are. Like, I know we had a conversation. I made it clear kind of what my desires were. And yeah, whatever happens from here, I don't know.
What are those desires to play at third base?
¿Cuál es tu preferencia? O sea, ¿qué tú deseas que pase en términos de tu posición?
Bueno, yo juego tercera base, yo no juego más otra posición. Mi posición es tercera, de ahí para allá no sé qué ellos van a decidir. No controlo lo que ellos vayan a hacer. Sino mi posición es tercera y es ahí que estoy ready todos los días de dar lo mejor de mí en lo que pueda y ya.
Yeah, no, like I said before, like my position is third base. I don't know how they want to go about it or what they want to do, but I know that that's the position I get ready to play every day. And it's just, you know, it's just my position.
How would you react if they asked you to DH? How would you feel about that?
No.
Can you translate that, please?
How do you feel like the lineup?
Just a no. And okay, I mean, Rafael Devers is a very good hitter, but, you know, as brought up by El Mimo, Bregman just won Gold Glove at third base. And Rafael Devers, defensively, is not that good. I mean, he's a hefty fella, doesn't exactly have the best range. Last year, he had 272 with 28 homers and 83 RBI. He wants to play third base. It's my position. Well, they just brought in someone who's better at it. And what are you going to do? You're refusing to change positions? I don't understand how you can try to justify that. And this is what's bothering me just about sports these days. Like, what an asshole. Do you really need to play third base? Why? I mean, he signed a 10-year, $313.5 million extension that started as of last year. And you're just gonna say, nah, man, I'm only gonna play third base. It's fucking ridiculous. And even if he does ultimately get moved to designated hitter or some other position, just knowing that there's a lot of people like this in sports who are handsomely paid for their services, and yet it's like, don't inconvenience them at all. Where the fuck do they get off? Like that, I truly don't get that. And then you see what you saw over the course of the weekend. If you watched the NBA All-Star festivities, where, to the surprise of no one, the new format with 4 teams, including a Rising Stars team, wasn't loved. Long breaks in action so that they could pay homage to the Inside the NBA guys, so that we could get a whole lot of Kevin Hart. I guess there were moments where the game was a little bit more competitive, but ultimately, it all lent itself to, at the very end, the players doing what they always do, which is like bitching and moaning about having to play a game for a living. Here's Trae Young.
To be honest, I didn't like it at all. I don't like the breaks, how long. I mean, the games are so short, obviously, we can score. And so they're trying to extend the game or extend the TV time with breaks and things like that. And as a player, you're trying to stay warm and things like that. So it's kind of tough to do that. I mean, we had a 7'5" guy over there coming off the bench for the first time probably in his life, and sitting 20 minutes is not probably easy for them. I mean, so it's tough for me. So I can already understand how they feel. So I don't necessarily know how I feel about that. I feel like there's a lot of people that feel that way about it.
What about the? I didn't watch it. And I know a lot of people didn't watch it. Almimo's pointing out, yeah, we watched USA and Canada fight each other in hockey. That was a whole lot of fun. But, I mean, I think what's really lame about this, is that we've gotten to a point in sports where you're almost inconveniencing athletes by merely asking them to fucking play a game for a living, you know? Kevin Durant tweeted this out this afternoon, if you missed it. I think it's more fun to complain about the NBA than to actually watch it. Crazy. Cancel All-Star Weekend and let's just give everybody a break since we're so miserable around this time. Is he talking about people who cover the sport? Is he talking about NBA fans? Is he talking about players? So I responded to this saying, I'm not disagreeing with any of this, but it also feels like every single solution the NBA has to make the regular season better or the All-Star game better is incentivizing already incentivized players so that they'll actually play, which is fucking nuts. I mean, it's a game that you're playing for a living, and sure, jobs can become jobs, and not everyone probably loves basketball the same way. But there's so many people, it feels like, in sports now that are playing sports that don't love what they do and need to be heavily incentivized to play every single game, when you think about how things used to be where these guys were making a whole lot less, playing in shitty hotels, flying on shitty planes, at least relatively. And they were playing every single game. But now you see guys get days off for load management, or you see LeBron not playing in the All-Star game and not telling anybody until a couple of minutes, hours before game time. It just feels like no one actually wants to play those sports anymore. And there's a lot of whining and complaining. Oh, I didn't like this All-Star game. And now they're going to try to copy the Four Nations deal that the NHL All-Star game did this weekend, which was a lot of fun. And obviously what's hanging over Canada and the United States, I think, added a little extra nationalistic seasoning to that game. But basketball, how are you going to do it when it just feels there are so many people that have no passion for a game that a lot of people love watching? I don't see how you get it back. The regular season has become more and more meaningless across sports because of the extra games that have been brought into the equation in football. I think we're trending that way, a lot further off than we are with the NBA. But how many nights are star players playing these days? Like 70? It does feel like that. And then in baseball, same thing, though to a lesser degree. If you're playing a game for a living, can you at least hide that you might hate playing this game that you play for a living? Can you at least hide it so that you're slightly more likable for all of us? Because I think that's a big problem with sports these days. Sure, like there's, players are too political, woke, blah, blah, fucking blah. I know there's a lot of mindset like that, but to me, what bums me out about doing this is it just feels like these guys don't really want to do what they do. I mean, you've fallen out of love with the thing that you've done your whole life. And I'm supposed to like for you. I'm supposed to empathize with you. I'm supposed to relate to you. I fucking can't. And it makes me not want to watch some of these sports. I wasn't going to watch the All-Star Weekend anyway, but just hearing the entitled athletes who say they're not going to move from one position to another in baseball, and seeing these basketball players who seem inconvenienced by the idea that during the All-Star break from the regular season, they have to play basketball. It's just fucking lame. Not lame. The United States and Canada's battle on Saturday night, which got out of hand very quickly after this national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, was met with this kind of response from Canadians. Love doing that whenever the national anthem's on. You know, for all the people that got mad about disrespect of the national anthem from guys taking a knee during it, just know that I would not be able to criticize that, because Whenever I'm standing near somebody and the national anthem plays and they talk about gallantly streaming, which sounds like some sort of pill that you take so that your prostate works a little bit better, I always like to go up to somebody I've never done it around before and say, that's my last name, when they talk about all that gallantly streaming. So right after that moment in the Four Nations All-Star event that they have at the NHL All-Star game, first 9 seconds of the game, brawling. American on Canadian crime. Was it all about the national anthem? Was there some chirping going on from Canadians before? Did players from the U.S. and Canada agree to this before the game? I don't know what led to it. I just know it was awesome from that point on. I got a push notification on my phone saying, yeah, Americans and Canadians are fighting. Hell fucking yeah. And then I watched the game and the U.S. won. And I really enjoyed it. First off, because the U.S. doesn't generally beat Canada in hockey. But second, I really enjoyed it because I know that our country isn't perfect. I really understand that. I know we've got a lot of work to do. But I think that as a country, as far as countries go, we're pretty reflective. And maybe it takes us some time to change ugly things that have been a part of us for a long period of time. But we generally do, at least eventually. So when people from other countries talk shit about the greatest experiment in the history of the world, minus all the shit that we did to get all the land, I guess this is my own land acknowledgement. I mean, you got people from all different cultures, all different religions, all being allowed to live freely. Sometimes even if they came here illegally in our country. And all these other countries talk so much shit. And I swear to God, no country talks more shit than the people to the north, Canadians. I saw a lot more of it when I was living up in Seattle. But I still see it from time to time. And Canadians can fuck off. I get that there's a tariff war going on, and I'm not going to pretend to know what is and what isn't, what if tariffs work. That's not something I'm interested in having a conversation about. But I do know it's in my best interests that the country I live in and pay taxes to go out of its way to try to make my situation better. Maybe the tariffs make it worse. Maybe they make it better. All I'm trying to say is I don't like it when other countries talk shit about my country or talk shit during the national anthem. And you know what? Our country gives you the right to boo during the national anthem or take a knee during the national anthem. We're going to do this at some point during the week on the show, but there's this 60 Minutes feature about censorship in Germany, and it really made me thankful that I live where I live. I can actually say whatever I want. And some of the assholes who were online saying, like, Canada should boo our national anthem, who are Americans, afterwards, and then deleted the post afterwards. Somebody by the name of Lindsay OK on X. She's one of those, like, she's a hot chick that does a lot of aggregation and occasionally posts funny things, but has a hot profile picture, which I'm sure leads to a lot of her following. She tweeted out, like, we should be embarrassed of our country. And, I mean, I guess if you're of one specific political persuasion, you can say that if you really want to, but only we get to say that. These fucking Canadians don't. The British don't. The Germans don't. No one gets to say that except for us. So whenever someone does, fuck them. One middle finger up, two middle fingers up. Like, that's how I feel. And I like that sports can give us that back. Going up against this Canadian country that always talks shit about all the bad things we're doing, boo fucking who, to kick their ass in our fourth best sport, and what is their best sport, was very, very satisfying. So I really enjoyed that. In a weekend where I felt like there were a lot of entitled athletes, at the very least, we got a little nationalism back in our lives. And you know what? Canada wants to boo the national anthem. They can. I'm not telling them they can't. Our country, we allow for that. I don't know if we would have been able to boo if we were traveling to Canada. I don't think we would have been allowed to boo the Canadian national anthem without being removed. But those people weren't, clearly. I'm very curious to see how things go when the Canadian national anthem gets played in Boston, when the U.S. and Canada play in a couple of days to wrap up that Four Nations tournament. Some comments. Avi Lieberman on Instagram. Regards from Jerusalem. Paul, Shabbat Shalom. The only person who probably approved of the national anthem booing was now Hamas member Alex Bregman. Hey, Avi, he's not a member of Hamas. He's a member of the Boston Red Sox. Okay? I feel like as far as enemies of the Astros state, that's not that high up at the top. But Boston did beat Houston once in 2018 and went on to win the World Series that year. More comments. Obed says, get your popcorn ready. Trump's making America great again. We'll see. I feel like at the very least, since he got elected, give him the chance. Did he have to always be angry online about who's running the show? You know, after a couple of years, if things aren't changing in a way that you like, fine. He does say some things that rub people the wrong way from time to time. But I don't know. I feel like everyone's acting like it's life or death. And honestly, what actually changed when he was running the show the first time? Nothing really much. You know? Everything that everyone claimed would happen. Did it happen? I don't remember it. More comments. James Clancy says, NBA needs a serious culture shift. Vets have created a high school atmosphere with teenage, like NUE. I don't even know what that word means. To seem cooler than everyone else. Silver's too soft on them, and he only cares about the sponsors. I agree with you there, but I think he, at the very least, is self-aware enough. He desperately jumping on Pardon My Take the way that he did right before the All-Star break. Like, he knows that they're losing a lot, but you're right. Like, they let the players get away with a lot after David Stern was like an unrepentant asshole to them. Like, that guy really swung his thing around. And now with Silver, who was very accommodating to the players, I mean, if you give a mouse a cookie, they're just going to keep on asking for more and more. And I think we've reached a point of no return. I don't see how you put the genie back in the bottle, the toothpaste back in the canister after this. Capsize says it's free for now. Grimace, the country. Well, you know what? The speech is free. I think that is something we will always have. I at least hope so. That Germany 60 Minutes should be a wake-up call about what we could have to deal with. Like, we really do have the only form of free speech in the world. And sure, free speech can have consequences, but, you know, this idea of cancel culture, no one's getting arrested for shit that they say online. Generally, you just lose your job or something like that. And sometimes you don't need to, and sometimes maybe it is merited, you know? Big Balls Squad 2021 says, hey, Paul, speaking on the NHL, would you trade Houston's soccer team for an NHL team? In a heartbeat. Abso-fucking-lutely. No offense to the Dynamo. I just don't care about soccer because it's not the highest level of soccer here. It's just not. If it was a little bit better, maybe I would. But nah. I would trade them in a heartbeat. I'd think about trading a basketball team. The Rockets, this Rockets team, I like them, but previous Rockets teams, I would have traded the Rockets for an NHL team. I don't know how well it would be supported here, though, unless they win. You know, I think that the team, if they have a hockey team ever here in Houston, again, it has to win to get people to stay interested. I would say the same thing about the WNBA too. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up today's edition of the Gallant Says podcast. If you ever want to email me a question, do it gallantsays@gmail.com. We do this thing live on a variety of different platforms every weekday around 4 p.m. Central Time. On YouTube at Paul Gallant. If you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe. Tell a friend. On Twitch at Gallant Says. If you're more of a Twitcher, give me a sub. It's on X and Twitter at Gallant Says. It's on Instagram at Sports Gallant. Follow me on both of those. Also on TikTok, you can see clips of the show after the fact at Gallant Says. On Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. Like my page if you're a Facebooker. It's also available occasionally after major Houston sporting events on all of those platforms. It's available after the fact wherever you get your podcasts. So if you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, and review me on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. If you roast my ass in the reviews, I will read it. Until tomorrow, around 4 p.m. Central Time, so long, farewell, and have yourselves a wonderful Monday. Peace!